Hey there and welcome to SI Now. It's Wednesday, January 18th, and I'm Ryan Aselta. The Baseball Hall of Fame will announce its class of 2017 later today. We're going to preview who's likely in and out. Plus, we're going to catch up with Washington Wizards forward Otto Porter. But we begin in the NFL. Conference Championship weekend is now just 4 days away. Plus, we've got some coaching news to get to. So let's welcome in NFL Network analyst Peter Schrager, who, of course, you can see Monday through Friday on Good Morning Football at 7 a.m. Eastern. And Peter, thanks for being with us, man. When you look at all these storylines heading into the weekend, what's the one you're looking forward to seeing play out the most?
Oh, let me see what Matty Ice is all about. I mean, I want to see what this kid can do. In the biggest of spots, it's going to be Matt Ryan's chance to go to the Super Bowl. We know about the other quarterbacks. We know about Rodgers. We know about Roethlisberger. We know about Brady. Their legacies are solid. They're Hall of Fame quarterbacks. But I think Matt Ryan's had a better season than all those guys this year. He's my MVP pick. And now he's got the whole nation watching, and he's doing it against maybe the hottest quarterback we've ever seen in Rodgers. It's such a cool storyline because Ryan doesn't necessarily get the national media attention, and he has faltered in the playoffs before. But now it's his time. It's his time to come above. And then if he gets through Rodgers, he's got either Big Ben or be waiting for him. I'm enjoying Matt Ryan's 2016 season. I want to see how it finishes out. All
right, you heard it here. Peter Schrager, MVP is Matt Ryan. All right, let's hit on a couple storylines here. The hype surrounding the Patriots and Steelers game began immediately after Pittsburgh win in Kansas City on Sunday night. You had Antonio Brown's Facebook Live capturing some not-so-flattering remarks in the about New England in the Pittsburgh locker room from Mike Tomlin. Now, as far as Brown is concerned, Peter, did he violate any league policy with the video broadcasting Facebook Live from the locker room?
Yeah, he did, but those rules are kind of vague. I mean, I think like in 2013 or 2014, I went back and looked at it. You're not supposed to be on Twitter, until 90 minutes after. There's all these rules, but then again, I've seen players. I mean, Earl Thomas was tweeting during a game at one point this year, and the league hasn't exactly been coming down on those rules. So I don't know what's going to happen. If they throw the book at him, it's ridiculous. I'm just curious to see what's next. You know what I mean? Like, here he is. I know Antonio. He just wanted to share with the fans the excitement in the locker room. And Michael Crabtree did it earlier this year after the Raiders clinched the playoff there. He was in the locker room and had it Facebook Live or Instagram Live or something, and there was no pushback. It just so happens that Tomlin's comments were caught online. But what's next, Ryan? I mean, how do you stop it? It's a locomotive to social media, and the NFL wants the players to be active. They want them to engage. The NFL has team accounts. The NFL has its own account. So are we that far away from a player pulling out a phone and live streaming an actual play? We're not. I don't know what is the next obstacle or what is the next barrier, but I'm not sure we want barriers when it comes to this stuff. I think it's cool for the fans to see it all.
All right, Ben Roethlisberger versus Tom Brady. Obviously, in the NFC, you have the hottest player on the planet in Aaron Rodgers versus arguably the MVP. No argument from you, Pete, but many believe Matt Ryan could be the MVP. Seeing the elite level of quarterbacks in these games, has the importance of the position reached an all-time high in the NFL?
It has, and it's funny because we went through a season here where, we were talking about Jameis Winston, Dak Prescott, Carson Wentz had his moment, and even the Russell Wilson, Andrew Luck, that generation. But these four quarterbacks are all over the age of 30. They've all been in the league since 2008. They've all got the skins on the wall. At the end of the day, the Kirk Cousins storyline is nice, and we can all get excited about, how well necessarily Marcus Mariota is playing. But at the end of the day, it is the four, senior quarterbacks, the guys who have been through the trenches, who have seen it all, who are going to square off in these last three games. And I think it's true. I mean, you look at the Jets, you got Ryan Fitzpatrick, and the Bills with Tyrod Taylor, and even the Dolphins when you've got Tannehill and you're kind of middling in the bottom half of the quarterback rankings. Get me a star quarterback. Let's build from there, and that's what these teams did. And these four quarterbacks are among the very best.
Let me ask you this then. Is it good for the NFL, the reliance on the position where the elite players are the elite teams, and it's that simple?
Yes, and I love it. I mean, look, I don't know from a fan perspective if you necessarily want to root for the Patriots. You certainly don't want to see the Chiefs and Texans with, Brock Osweiler versus Alex Smith if you're looking for star appeal. I love the characters of the game, and I think all four of these quarterbacks have tremendous characters, behind them. You've got the Antonio Browns, the Le'Veon Bells, the Julio Jones. That's great. But when it all comes down to it, you've got four really dynamic quarterbacks with four different personalities, four different histories. I love quarterback play. I think the quarterback is the biggest position, more than center field, more than goalie in hockey. I think quarterback is the biggest position in sports. We've got 4 awesome ones going at it on Sunday.
Yeah, we can agree. Texans, Chiefs would have been kind of ugly, Pete. All right, speaking of quarterbacks, Tony Romo likely find a new home this offseason. Any predictions as to where the 36-year-old's going to end up?
Yeah, I got on this on our morning show, Good Morning Football on NFL Network, because I think people think it's as easy as Tony Romo for a first-round pick or Tony Romo for a second-round pick. His contract is really tricky. It's not fun to talk about because it's salary cap stuff. But they might be better off just cutting Tony Romo and like Colts did with Peyton Manning and letting him just pick his own next destination if they're looking to move him. Because the way it is right now, it's like $19 million in dead salary cap money. If they trade him, that's going to hit their cap. They're already going to be $20 million over the cap as it is. There's a bunch of nightmare situations with the cap or salary cap. So to just think of it as a simple trade, not that easy. Now, where do I think when it's all said and done where he'll end up? I think he'd go and play for an AFC team next year. I think the Houston Texans make a lot of sense. I think the Denver Broncos make a lot of sense. I think the Miami Dolphins might make a lot of sense. I don't know if the Dolphins ever get over the hump with Tannehill. You got Adam Gase, a guy who worked with Peyton Manning after working with Tim Tebow, and said, let's get over the hump in Denver. I'm not sure that's the worst fit for Tony Romo, and maybe he challenges Tannehill. It's wide open. You're going to hear a lot of teams, Chiefs, Jets, the list goes on. And that's kind of a fun storyline to follow this offseason.
All right, looks like San Francisco is set to offer their head coaching job to Falcons offensive coordinator Kyle Shanahan. Now, Shanahan was with RG3 for his first season in Washington, had some success. Do you think Shanahan could be the guy to revive the career of another mobile quarterback like Colin Kaepernick?
Oh, I don't think Kaepernick is necessarily long for San Francisco. I'm not sure who their quarterback's going to be. I would think they have a number 2 pick in the draft, and if Kyle Shanahan's the coach, he's going to want to have a rookie quarterback that he picked, that he plucked, that he can keep him grow old with. The deal with Shanahan, though, is, and I don't see this coming up anywhere now, but I know these Atlanta Falcons pretty well. And Matt Ryan's under contract for next year. Julio Jones is too. So are the 2 running backs. So is Mohamed Sanu. So is the entire offensive line. So if Kyle doesn't necessarily love the opportunity in San Francisco, and trust me, he hasn't signed a big deal yet, you can't by the rules of the league, maybe he waits a year and there's 5 more openings, and maybe he works for Andrew Luck next year, or maybe he works for Kirk Cousins next year. I just think that this Atlanta offense is really special. It's not going anywhere. And if he wants to say, maybe pass and I'll hit on it next year, that might be the move as well.
Tell you what, if Pete's passion doesn't get you excited for this weekend's games, nothing will. Remember, you can see Peter Schrager on NFL Network's Good Morning Football Monday through Friday, beginning at 7 a.m. Pete, thanks for being with us, man.
Always great with you, Ryan. Thank you so much.
All right, let's stick with the NFL and welcome in our next guest who spent 15 seasons as a linebacker in the NFL. He's also the author of a very unique book titled Behind the Mask. Takeo Spikes is here. And Takeo, thanks for being here, man. Peter and I just talked about 2 of your former teams there, so I might as well get to those questions right away. The Chargers and the Niners.
Yeah.
You spent the last 2 seasons of your career in San Diego with the Chargers. When you heard the news, Chargers going to L.A., what's the first thought that popped in your head?
Disheartening. I hated it for the citizens of San Diego because I know how much they care about football. But more than that, me spending 2 years out of my 15-year career there, I know how much they look forward to the game. And I'm talking about the citizens, the people who are there, not the implants, but the people who are there, because they're living off of a fixed income every year, guaranteed money as far as them being able to provide for their families, and for the team to be uprooted all of a sudden in the middle of the night. Yeah. That doesn't sit well with all of the citizens from there.
They go to L.A. where they're not necessarily being welcomed. How tough would that be for a player? You're moving to a new city now where the fans really don't seem to be behind you.
Well, it's tough. It's tough from a player perspective. The transition, it's easier because only thing you're doing is really uprooting your home, and you're compensated well, so you can make that transition okay. The tough part is what people don't realize from the athlete's perspective is understanding when you get to that city. I know California, East Coast football is different than West Coast football. When you get to California, people will support you when you show that you have a proven product to be supported. And that's the thing that they're going to have to battle against. You know, on the flip side, it's kind of on a facetious level. Well, they're playing into a 30,000 stadium arena. So I would like to think the Chargers will be able to fill that up coming up for the upcoming year. But, it's a tough deal. You look at the economics of the game and you see that it's not favorable to the Spanos family. And so for them, that's why they had to move.
Yeah, they hopefully they can fill that soccer stadium in California. How about the Niners? You spent a couple years with them as well, 3 seasons with the Niners. A lot of change of coach, change of front office. Is it tough to a player to tune all that out and try to win ball games, build a winner with so much chaos around you?
Well, you can't tune all of that out from a player because, everything starts from the top. And from the top, it starts to trickle down to every player on that team. And so with that being said, when your GM is beefing with the head coach, and so now you have 2 different voices that's coming out throughout the week, because you have to keep in mind as a player, you're going to talk to your GM throughout sometimes walking through the hallway, but then as your coach, he's going to have a different belief too. And from a noticeable standpoint as a player, when you see that neither one of those guys are on the same page, as a player, you sit back and scratch and just say, so who should I believe? Or what direction are we going in? And as a player, you just want everything to be as transparent as possible, and you want to be able to have that plan laid out. And if you can't have a definitive plan laid out, and it's hard to be able to understand or see where you're going.
Interesting point. I think a lot of players would have said, no, I just focus on football on the field.
Well,
it's an interesting take, and it's refreshing.
Yeah.
It is. Let me ask you about Antonio Brown. It's conference championship week.
Yep.
He's been the biggest story so far. His Facebook Live from the locker room. Doesn't seem like there's going to be discipline, but you were a leader in many locker rooms. Does a player with less star status get away with something that he pulled on Sunday?
I just think in the light of it, how he did it, I think it's good from all aspects. Because people want to see that sacred area to where they don't have access to, and that's the locker room. You go all the way back from Paul Tagliabue when he was the commissioner. There was none of that. You were not allowed to be able to show anything, even from other shows. They're filming training camp. So now you look at the regime up under Roger Goodell. I understand it. I get it. And so for me, I don't have a problem with it as long as it's showing everybody in a good light, exposing everything to where it makes people or makes the interest of the fan draws that much closer to the game of football.
Yeah, that's that connection we talk about with the player and the fan. It's the venue they have right now is right there on social media. How about the hottest player in the playoffs, Aaron Rodgers? It's mind-boggling what he's doing over the last 8 weeks. You're a linebacker. You're leading that defense. What type of game plan are you guys coming up with? What type of game plan are the Falcons trying to come up with this week to try to contain him?
Well, I'll tell you what, it won't be a 3-man rush like the Dallas Cowboys did on that play to where he hit Cook on the sideline at the last minute. The most important thing when you're playing against Aaron Rodgers is understanding that his greatest asset when he makes the big plays is when he has time to throw. And you cannot allow him to have time to throw. The Atlanta Falcons defense, Vic Beasley, other guys, Dwight Freeney, Jonathan Babineau, those guys do a very good job of not only applying pressure individually, but they do it collectively. So ultimately, when I look at this game, I think it's going to boil down to how much time or the lack of time that you don't want to give Aaron Rodgers, because we know more than anybody, even with the 4-man rush, he can dance around in the pocket and make things happen and make you pay for it.
Probably say the same thing about Tom Brady, right? The key to Brady is get him off his spot, get to him like the Texans did a little bit last weekend. We'll see if the Steelers can do that. Picks for this weekend. Who you got? Who's going to the Super Bowl?
Well, from what I've seen over the past 2 weeks, I like the Atlanta Falcons with the win at home at the NFC Championship, advancing to the Super Bowl. And I hate to say it. People even hate this. You got to go with the Patriots, though. They're at home, and I understand both offenses are very high-powered attacks. At the end of the day, I think it's going to boil down to what defense plays better in the end. And I think overall, from a coaching perspective, looking at what Pittsburgh did last week against Kansas City. They didn't get caught, but I guarantee you if they present that same type of defense towards the New England Patriots in Foxborough, Tom Brady will find it.
Of course, the Patriots had that extra rest that Mike Tomlin alluded to in his locker room speech, the day and a half. We'll see if that's a roll. Let's talk about this book. Really cool book. Visually, when you look at this thing, it's really good stuff. You're the author of this book, Behind the Mask, the linebacker edition, also the photographer, Takeo. How did this idea come about for this book?
Well, it was my transition year at the end of 2012. I went to a bar, and I was just trying to figure out what was I going to do next. And for me, I understood it was important for me to follow my passion. And my passion, I understood I love photography. I love the aspect of being able to tell a story with a single image. And so I was like, you know what? People ask me all the time, how did you become great? What did you do? And so I was like, I'll just put my story in a book. And the more I thought about it, I was like, well, why not invite all of my other NFL brethren into the book and share their moment of how did they become an outlier? What made them great? What was their defining moment? And that's how I came up with the concept of the book.
You profile 11 linebackers, some of the all-time greats at the position.
Yeah.
You have a favorite story, something you learned while putting this book together?
I learned a lot. I learned a lot from a lot of guys. And the beauty of it is when you look at this book and you take your time to read it, the stories are so good. And we as fans only know these players from what they've shown us on the football field. From this book, from one player to another, me taking 2 years to go around and interview every guy, the beauty of it is now they're speaking from their own self. And so they're really sharing their soul on how did they become great, what made them different, what sacrifices they made, and what they went through to overcome that period of time to where it was adversity. And so that's what makes it so special. One of the biggest stories I love all of the stories, of course, I wrote them, but one of the biggest stories I love is one of the hometown guys, Harry Carson from the Giants. I spent the day with him, and to hear him say when he was growing up, he came up through the segregation era back during the civil rights times in Florence, South Carolina, and he never knew he knew he possessed the leadership qualities, but when the schools stopped being segregated and then they integrated all schools, he went to an integration high school. And so at that time, it was, the blacks looking at the whites looking at the blacks. But by the game of football, he realized he was able to bring people together regardless of race, religion, belief. And at that time, that's when they excelled together in high school. He went on to South Carolina State to set records there, bring guys together. And so people know him as the captain now, but if you really want to know about the captain, how it all started, he shared that story with me, and I'm able to share it with the world.
One of the many great stories in this book. Looks perfect on a coffee table.
It is. It's a beautiful coffee table.
Really good stuff. Takeo Spikes, the book is Behind the Mask. Thanks so much, and hopefully we're going to see more of these books from you, man.
Absolutely. Let's do it. This is Volume 1, Linebacker Edition.
Looking forward to more. Thanks, Takeo. All right, let's switch gears now to the NBA, where last night's action was highlighted by James Harden's fourth 40-point triple-double of the season. Clearly, the Rockets are part of the cream of the crop out west, but in the East, parity is the name of the game as the top 6 teams are all within 8 games of the top spot. One of those teams is the Washington Wizards. Our Maggie Gray recently caught up with Wizards forward Otto Porter, whose emergence this season has Washington right in the thick of things in the Eastern Conference.
Otto, your 4th season has been your best yet. You are registering career highs in points, assists, rebounds, and steals. What has changed for you this season?
Just a lot of hard work is starting to pay off. Each year I try to prime myself in getting better, and also with the help of my coaches and my teammates. They're putting me in position to be successful, and I'm going with it. Continue to work hard at it, and I continue to believe in myself, and my teammates believe in me, my coaches believe in me, and just going with it.
Specifically, your three-point shooting percentage has gone up significantly. Last year, you were shooting 37%. Now it's 44%. It's a big improvement. Was there a technique adjustment?
It was a little bit of technique adjustment for me. I worked on it a lot this past off season because, knowing that I have John Wall and Bradley Beal that, gain so much attention when they drive to the paint, I know where my shots was going to come from.
Talked about John Wall and Bradley Beal and you. Basically, you've created this big three, although we don't seem to talk about you guys as much as some other big threes in the league. Do you think that you're underrated? I mean, are we not giving you guys enough attention?
I think we like being underrated, because we have to prove ourselves. So I think it just motivates us even more, when we go out there and play.
What's the dynamic like between the three of you and then also between John Wall and Bradley Beal? Can you describe that?
It's great. I don't understand why people, try to figure out what the dynamic is. I mean, we love playing with each other. We're young, we like to get out and run and play, and everybody's mindset is focused on one goal, and that's win a championship and get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I think everybody is realizing that, and we're just running with it, playing great together. Chemistry is there. We have a new coach. Everybody's mindset is the same.
Scott Brooks coached another big three. Obviously, you know this. It was Harden, Westbrook, and Durant in Oklahoma City. Can you tell that he's employing some of the same strategies that he used with those three, or does he talk about often, things that worked and didn't work for them in Oklahoma City and how it could work or not work for you guys in D.C.?
No, it's different. He's putting together things, that he thinks will work for us, not anybody else. He's figuring out what our talents are and how he can put our talents at his best. So it's just different. For him, he has a different game plan for us than he did for them. So, and I think his game plan is working for us.
Yeah, it clearly is. The team absolutely on fire at home. 12 in a row at the Verizon Center, yet the team's 4-13 on the road. That's the second fewest wins in the NBA. What's your best explanation for why the team struggles away from home?
We have to just take our same mindset at home, which is, defending. That's the only way I can explain it. We have to play with that same energy. Even though we're not home, we have to play with that same energy and same mindset. And just sticking together on the road. We know that certain things might not go our way on the road, but we just got to find a way to overcome those obstacles and pull out some wins.
Can't help but look a little bit down on the schedule, and I know you're definitely going to take it one game at a time. I get that. But you'll see the Celtics again in a few days. And the only reason why I bring it up is because the last time you guys played the Celtics, Jay Crowder and John Wall had to be separated, and there was a little skirmish that took place. After the game, this is what you said of the Celtics. They're a physical team. They try to play dirty. They try to take you out of your game. Their whole team, that's just how they try to play. Obviously, that caught our interest. Are they the dirtiest team you've played? Are they the most physically imposing team you've played this season?
No, they just play hard. They're not dirty, but they just play hard, and they try to get you out of your game. They just bring a different physicality. Like I said, they play hard, and they're a good team. And, playing against them, we want to beat them. We want to beat them pretty bad, So it's just two teams playing hard against each other.
Otto, of course, there's so many great games on a nightly basis in the NBA. So I'm curious, when you're not breaking down Wizards film or watching your own tape, who do you like to watch?
San Antonio and Kawhi Leonard. That team is definitely a team that I look at. Personally myself, and especially Kawhi Leonard.
What do you take from Kawhi's game? What do you like about watching him?
I just like everything, playing on both ends of the floor, defending, how he defends certain people, things like that. And then offensively, the way that they play as a team in general,
It's been successful for them. Before I let you go, you're coming off your rookie deal at the end of the year. Makes you a restricted free agent. Otto, the buzz is that you're going to get a max contract. Do you see yourself as a max contract player?
Right now, I'm not even thinking about that. I'm letting my people handle that situation. Right now, I'm just trying to focus on my team and what I can do for my team right now. I'm not even worried about anything dealing with the contract situation. I'm just trying to stick to playing basketball right now.
And we're certainly not ones to distract you from that. You're off to a great start so far this season. It's a pleasure to watch you. Otto Porter Jr., always appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Otto Porter, really one of the young stars in the NBA to keep an eye on. All right, later today, the Baseball Hall of Fame will announce its class of 2017. Let's welcome in SI senior editor Ted Keith to talk some baseball. And Ted, according to the latest count tally, it looks like we have two shoo-ins here, and that's Jeff Bagwell and Tim Raines. Raines on his 10th and final time on the ballot, Bagwell on his 7th. Let's start with Raines here. Why was this such a tough decision? Why did it take so long to get him in?
He's a fascinating case in a lot of ways because obviously his numbers haven't changed since the day he retired. It's taken the full 10 years, I think, for people to have an appreciation of how good of a player he was. And even today, you're going to find people who are saying, okay, he'll probably get in, but he's not, he's not an elite Hall of Famer. He's not Willie Mays. He's not Ty Cobb. He's not Babe Ruth. And that's fine. Not every Hall of Famer is. But is he good enough to be in the Hall of Fame? I think yes, absolutely. I don't see really why the debate took so long for Raines. To me, he should have been in the Hall of Fame years ago, but it is fascinating to watch a guy who had to go from the 20s, the 20% range, all the way to clearing the 75% bar. It's a testament to why guys should stay on the ballot for a long time.
How about Bagwell, 7th year? Is it a matter of taking 7 years to kind of do away with the whispers, the rumors, the PED rumors that had been attached to him?
I think it helps that this sort of shift toward the guys who took PEDs or who we think took PEDs has helped him a little bit in the same way that the strong stance against him hurt him for a couple of years, even though, and this is important, he's never actually been officially linked to anything. He admitted taking androstenedione, which is a steroid precursor, before it was banned by anybody else, and he had some comments where he was fine with people who took steroids, didn't have a problem with it. And I don't know if that sort of reflected well on a guy who people felt like there was, they weren't quite sure which way to fall, but there was never any evidence that he took banned substances. Now, the fact that it took him this long, given that his numbers too look completely Hall of Fame worthy, is a testament to the shifting mindset, I think, of some of these voters and trying to figure out how they should handle guys who played during that era that Bagwell played in.
Let's talk about some of the other guys that were close on the list we just showed. Pudge Rodriguez, first year on the ballot, looking like 78, 79% could get in. Is Pudge the greatest catcher that you've seen play baseball?
All around, yeah, probably in my lifetime. Johnny Bench sort of precedes me, or at least his prime does, and certainly Yogi Berra and Bill Dickey and Mickey Cochran and guys like that. So for a guy who was routine, I mean, how many guys as a catcher can you say that you knew he had a reputation of don't run on him? Pudge Rodriguez was the first guy you would think of. Base runner, he took the running game away from other teams. He made teams game plan differently. And oh, by the way, he was an offensive threat. He was an MVP winner. So I think hands down the best catcher, all-around catcher in baseball for years. Again, the PED suspicions, the allegations made, I think, by Jose Canseco in his book. And I think it's important to remember that some of these ballots that have been put out are not representative of the full voting body. So some of these guys, their numbers are not going to reflect exactly what we're seeing today on Election Day, which, is not a surprise. We're used to that in this country.
Those numbers can move a little bit.
Those are ballots that have been made public, and that's important because we see what people have been willing to say, this is who I voted for. But at least 150 guys are not making their ballots public, and those tend to bring the numbers down on a lot of these players. So Pudge is going to be very close, but he's going to be so high that whether he gets in this year or not, he'll get in next year or the year after, and he'll deserve it.
What about Trevor Hoffman, who seems to be right on the line? Why has the case been so tough for one of the greatest closers we've ever seen?
Yeah, it's a really fascinating year for debate because we don't have guys who cleared these bars, 500 home runs, 300 wins, 3,000 hits, and had no suspicions of performance-enhancing drugs. These are all steroid-era guys, so they all come with their own sort of suspicions. And Hoffman, of course, 601 saves, the all-time leader until Mariano Rivera came along. His mark, I think, for the Hall of Fame is the longevity with which he did it, and the fact that he was always among the best closers in baseball in a closer-influenced era for better than a decade. There are a lot of guys every year who come and go as closers, and they don't have the lasting impact that a guy like Hoffman did or a guy like Rivera did. But people have always sort of wondered, it's not like he was an overpowering pitcher like Rivera was. It's not like he was a great part of championship teams like Eckersley and Rivera were. And so they sort of knocked the save, and that means a knock against Hoffman. But again, he's in that ballpark where even if he didn't get in this year, and I think he will, he'll wind up getting in a couple of years.
He seemed to have that one pitch like Rivera, though. It was
Yeah,
a
the
change-up for
yeah.
Trevor Hoffman. You talked about debate, controversy, the steroid era. We can't let you go with talking about Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, who it seems like the momentum is there, Ted. They were topping out in the 40s last year with their vote. They appear to be high 50s, low 60s this year. Are we trending towards seeing the day when they get into the Hall?
It is trending in that direction. Now, I don't have a vote, but I would not vote for them if I did have a vote, for the same reason I wouldn't vote for Manny Ramirez and Rafael Palmeiro. And it seems to me that people who I respect a great deal, and I respect the opinions on all sides of this issue, but when people try to thread the needle on these guys and say, well, they were Hall of Famers beforehand, or they did things before there was official testing in place. To me, that's overcomplicating the issue. These guys, we have very strong evidence, we'll say alleged, but we have very strong evidence that they used performance-enhancing drugs. That was cheating. They were cheating the game and doing so deliberately. There's no other punishment that you can hand them that would stick. Can't take their statistics away, can't take their records away, can't take their awards away, can't take their money away, can't take the memories away that they created. If the only disincentive you have is to say to people, if you do this, we're not going to let you in the Hall of Fame, that's only going to even apply to a small handful of people. So if they do get into the Hall of Fame, and obviously they deserve it based on their numbers, what kind of message does that send to people? It's not like the steroid era will ever officially go away. There will always be people trying to gain an advantage. And if you say to them, there's really no consequences, we would really appreciate it if you didn't do these things, but there's never going to be anything we can do to actually stop you from doing them or punish you if you do them if we don't catch you. If you don't actually fail a test and you're smarter than the system. So I think that sends the wrong message, and I appreciate the way people feel about them. I loved watching them play too, but I just don't see them belonging in the Hall of Fame.
It's a strong sentiment held by many, though the tide seems to be changing just a bit. SI Senior Editor Ted Key, thanks so much for being with us. We look forward to this afternoon when the class of 2017 is announced. And that's going to do it for this Wednesday edition of SI Now. Make sure to join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern when Minnesota Vikings Pro Bowler Cordarrelle Patterson will stop by. Until then, stick with SI.com for all the latest news and follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live. Have a great afternoon.